and an innocent driver has died and 5 others have been injured after another police pursuit ended in tragedy in Christchurch. The motorist died after his car was hit by a fleeing Toyota at just after 4 this morning. It brings the number of people who have died from police chases in the city to 5 this year alone. Despite that, the police minister says there will be no review of pursuit policy. Christchurch reporter Nicholas Pointon and cameraman Simon Rogers have the story.
The crash at the intersection of Idris and Glendowie roads happened just after 4 o'clock this morning. Police were chasing a car seen driving erratically and pursued it for 4 minutes before it ploughed into the innocent driver's vehicle. The impact shunted the car into a stone wall, critically injuring the driver, who later died in hospital. The collision happened in front of Nigel Watts's Fendleton home.
The police don't seem to, in my opinion, know when to back off for these guys. They just push them, and this is what happens. They take somebody else out on the way through. I'm less than impressed, actually, because if they've chased that guy from Papanui Road, it's a fair way, straight up through this residential area. It's pretty ridiculous, I think. They should have just backed off and this mightn't have happened.
Sentiments echoed by his wife, Sandra Francis.
I think they need to back off, these young boys, and just slow down and catch them down the track. Not right here in the middle of the city in the residential area. You know, look what's happened.
However, their neighbour, Sarah Webster, says police have no choice but to give chase.
Obviously they're up to no good, so the police are only doing their job, aren't they? Just a shame that the poor innocent people were in the road.
Of the 5 in the car being chased, 1 is in a critical condition, with the other 4 having moderate or serious injuries. The actions of the officers involved in this morning's chase are now being investigated by the Independent Police Conduct Authority. Their boss, Canterbury Metro Area Commander Lane Todd, says the chase was still underway when the crash happened. He would not be drawn on whether the officers were ordered to abandon it, but he insisted the findings of a review into police chases in March were now being implemented by his officers.
Additional training has been put in place, but also there's a higher reliance on what we call as the 10R risk assessment that the officers have to go through. So that's our threat exposure, necessity to respond, and then the response itself. So there's a lot more training and oversight of that particular process.
Lane Todd says police have visited the family of the man who died.
This incident is an absolute tragedy, and our thoughts are with the family of the man who has died and with those who are injured. Every day our staff come to work to protect the community and keep them safe. That this event has occurred is devastating.
Today's crash brings the number of people who have died from police chases in Christchurch to 5 this year alone. In January, 3 teenage boys died on Blenheim Road when their car crashed and burned after hitting road spikes laid by the police. In August, a pedestrian was hit and killed by a man in a stolen van fleeing the police. Despite the rising body count, Police Minister Stuart Nash says there is no need for a review into police policies.
We had a review that came out, I think, in about March the 13th or 14th this year, but it was a comprehensive review with a number of recommendations, and I think police agreed with all the recommendations and are in the process of implementing those.
In Christchurch for Checkpoint, Nicholas Pointon.
The 5 people in the fleeing car are still being treated in hospital and nobody has yet been charged.